So that was the intro to the original PlayStation 1 Sega Saturn version of Resident Evil. That Capcom logo, the sound, and the intro of the dude being eaten alive is still seared into my brain. And just rewatching it still induces a little fear. You're greeted with a similar intro with Alisa, and that was the first time I felt real nostalgic. Because as a kid, I was afraid of everything, and seeing that intro with Resident Evil, it made me feel that. You know, what you tend to remember things when it comes to nostalgia when it's like related to like feeling. And since I was scared of the intro of Resident Evil, well, I wasn't scared of the intro, I was scared of the game. So being afraid of Resident Evil, watching that intro would kind of just take me back there. And there's only one non-horror game that I could really remember that made me feel this way. Sokoden 3 is a game that deals with the atrocities of war, and whenever I watch the intro, I get really sad, especially from the events that happen through the game. And even though I don't remember much about the game itself, I do remember the feeling it made me feel while playing it. Sometimes when I want to get nostalgic, I'll watch old YouTube videos. I'll watch old commercials on YouTube, like from like 95, early 2000s. And you'll get, if you've ever done that before, and if you're like me, you feel the feeling of nostalgia. And sometimes that makes me sad, sometimes it makes me happy, and sometimes a little bit of both. And throughout the game, I felt that with Alisa, the feeling of nostalgia, which is, I would say, is probably the main character of this game. Watching Alisa's intro wouldn't be the last time I felt nostalgia while playing this game. Everything from the tank controls to the fixed cameras, or when you click on something that just gives you dialogue. It makes you feel like you're playing a video game from the late 90s. In more ways than one. The puzzles in the game remind me of it. The scripted events. So, what is Alisa? Well, Alisa is a game developed by Casper Crows, mostly developed by himself. His wife did the music and the title character's voice, and I can't help but wonder if they had similar childhood as far as horror games are concerned. The game is a homage to the old school survival horror games, and if you're a fan of those, like if you can go back, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I think the targeted audience are those who used to play those type of games. And more specifically, those who used to play those type of games and still can. If you ever try to go back and replay an old video game and just like get frustrated and just couldn't get past like through the beginning because we have evolved in gameplay the way we have, then the game might not be for you. But if you see yourself being able to replay Resident Evil or the old Silent Hill games, then you might be one of the people who appreciate this type of games. And anybody else for that matter who can actually play those old school games. Now, although the game is inspired by old school survival horror games, I would say its main inspiration is probably Resident Evil. I think there's more in common with that than there is like specifically like Silent Hill or even Dino Crisis. If old school survival horror games are the vehicle this game is driving at, Resident Evil is definitely the driver. Which makes a lot of sense because even though people argue that technically the first survival horror game would be Alone in the Dark, but Resident Evil was the first to coin the term. Like whenever you would return to playing it, like when you would load up your game, it would say time to like, or something like time to return to the world of survival horror. Which makes sense because a lot of people, like especially from my generation, that was their introduction to these type of games. I don't know many people whose first survival horror game would be like Silent Hill or something like that. It's usually universally Resident Evil, but of course there's exceptions to the rule, but I'm just speaking from personal experience. The game has save points which you use with currency, which you get by killing enemies. So it's not exactly like the old school survival horror games, because in those games you want to like ammo conserve, where in this game there's incentive to kill the enemies rather than to pass them by, because of the currency they drop, which you use to upgrade weapons and make saves. I think what Casper Crows did with this game is really special. I know that I know that this isn't technically the first homage to those old school survival horror games, but it's the first one that I've played. And I'm so glad I did. I played this on a PlayStation 5. This is like a PlayStation 5 review. The game's been out a while on Steam. And yeah, the game isn't super hard. Honestly, the hardest part for me was the controls. And once I got used to it, I started to like really smooth through, the game itself. And okay, here's a clip of me during my second playthrough, right? See, I'm just walking through just fine, all natural and everything like that. And let me see, it takes just a few seconds to get to this one point of the game, right? Now here's a clip of me trying to walk to the same area, but this time it's when I first started playing the game. Okay? Yeah, look at that. I haven't played a survival horror game since like who knows when. Well, survival horror game with tank controls in a while. And look at me just spin it along and just trying to get to a door a few minutes. And then the footage is actually sped up too. So once I kind of conquered that, it was all good from there. The combat I got used to fairly quick. The hardest part about the combat was just like shooting enemies in the ground. But there's this sword that you get, which is like really overpowered. And yeah, that's all I can say about Alisa. It was a great game, and I suggest it for anybody who misses those type of games. Okay? Thank you for watching, and have a great day.